Greetings! Anton here with a smaller devlog this week for hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. Sound checks all around. Uh, Basically, this week was a bit of a boring one from having stuff to show to you folks standpoint. I did a whole bunch of modeling work on the upcoming Take and Hold level, a whole bunch of little fixes, migrations of the item spawner into or rather the modern one, into a couple more scenes like the Kappa Coliseum, the Winter Wasteland, Meat Grinder, the Arcade Proto, and Meat Fortress. But the big thing that I want to actually take more than, a 30-second summary to talk to you about is that I added a bunch of things this week specifically for a bunch of you modder folk who like building custom weapons and custom gadgets and objects for the game. I've basically been assembling a bit of a set of request lists from folks who end up doing mods for the game who aren't themselves folks who do lots of code work, but would like more things to play with. So just to rattle them down, because these are API changes, some of which are just for modders and some of which I'm going to use myself in the future. There is now an internal script for what's called a universal mag grab trigger. So this is sort of the interaction trigger that allows you to grab magazines out of guns that there are specific versions of in the game for the guns that use that. There's now a universal one that should work on pretty much every type of gun that can have a magazine, and includes belt box support if you're trying to build exotic stuff. I know some of you folk end up making some pretty science fiction, some pretty cool fictional guns, adapted stuff from other games and such, so this should help with that. There's a new internal script for an advanced form of the open bolt top cover that can just be flexibly rotated and used a little bit more than when I implement a component in the game. And this is something that I have had to learn over time developing this, especially in regards to people doing mods, is I will implement sometimes just as much of a feature as I need for what I'm building, but we'll then just kind of like lazily hard code a whole bunch of things like, oh, I just need this to go from 0 to 90. So it's just written that way in the script. And then years pass and I forget about it. And someone's like, hey, Anton, why did you hard code that? I don't want it to be different. Sort of thing. So I'm trying to go around to a bunch of little places in the game where I have done that in years past just to make it easier for people who are making custom content. So this is one of those. There's a new internal option for modders for basically if you're making a gun that uses a belt box like an LMG, that allows it to auto mount a belt onto a gun on attach, as well as being able to be just torn right back out. Once again, for exotic stuff, this probably needs some testing. I added something for folks who are making more video gamey guns called engagement delay, which is basically a sort of fixed time interval that can be added in between trigger pulls, and whether this is semi-auto, full auto, or burst fire, that prevent you from sort of spamming the trigger super rapidly. And I may actually, just for like raw game feel, juiciness, put this into a couple of my own fictional weapons, just to make the sort of burst fire a little more distinct from the full auto fire. I totally understand why some of the modder folk implemented something like this in the first place, just for burst fire. But this can now function for closed bolt and open bolt receivers and handguns in all of the firing modes. There's an internal option here for suppress deletion of caseless rounds. This is another one of those, like, Anton had did something stupid 4.5 years ago and just sort of rolled with it. And now when I look back at the code, I just go, why did I do any of that? Sort of thing. So basically any caseless round that gets ejected out of a chamber gets automatically deleted. And I did this, I think, in part because I didn't know that a G11 could manually eject one of its caseless rounds out the bottom, and because I use caseless rounds as like an abstract sort of cartridge for things like the space blaster and things like that. So I don't want fake cartridges ejecting out of them if you play with the action, but it's left me in the situation where you can't choose to extract a caseless round from any weapon without firing it. And so this little option allows you to do that. So apologies to any modders who've had to work around this stupidity. The code base is just filled with minds of my own inadequacy in the past. So yes, and open bolt receivers now also have a traditional burst fire mode. I don't know if there's actually a real gun that is like that in real life. I would have to actually look that up if there's such a thing as a burst fire open bolt gun, or if that even makes sense. But you can make one now if you're making custom objects in H3. So there you go. Cool. So beyond that, part of the reason that this week was kind of boring is I am I'm moving in stages towards essentially a big update for Taken Hold. That sort of goes along with a bunch of other sort of level content that will be in other aspects of the game, like Game Planner. And the sort of order of operations I'm doing is like, fix all the stupid old bugs, fix a couple of the big pieces of behavior, carefully stage the new item spawner into Taken Hold in a way that makes sure that things don't break for all the Taken Hold mod content, because I know tons of you folk play the custom levels. Do some very careful edits to the main menu in Taken Hold so that it better accommodates more levels, more characters, things like that. And then doing the competitive character and the new Taken Hold levels. So I'm getting the boring stuff out of the way first, just so I don't cause myself problems later. And also because if I do the fun part first, I won't want to do the boring part later. I'll just want to focus on, getting a level out to you folks and testing and balancing it and just myopically looking at that. And then some of these bugs that have been in there for like 2 years will be in there for 2 years more. So, game development is boring sometimes. So yeah, so that's as I said, it's not a terribly exciting experimental build this week. It's just, I need to make sure that all of the things that I just didn't horrendously break hundreds of guns in the game, and that the item spawner substitutions don't introduce any regressions or negative performance to the scenes that they've been put in, but hopefully everything should be good. And with that, hopefully next week I will have something more fun for you folks to all play with, or at least some cool shots of an in-progress level. So, anywho, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace.